The shot echoed through the parking lot, and for a moment, everything went silent. The Black Army major fell to one knee, clutching his shoulder as blood soaked through his uniform. The cop who fired didn't even lower his gun. He stepped forward, shouting, "Stay down. Don't you move. I know what you people do." The major's breath trembled, but his voice stayed calm through the pain. "Officer, I told you, this is my car. I showed you my ID." The cop scoffed. "Fake. All fake. You think wearing a uniform gives you a free pass." He kicked the major's ID onto the ground and pressed his boot against the wounded man's chest. "This is my town. I decide who's a threat." The major winced but didn't break. "I serve this country. I have clearance you can't even dream of." The cop laughed harshly. "Yeah, and I have a badge. Means I can do whatever I want." A few bystanders gasped, recording the entire scene. One whispered, "He shot an army officer, that's a federal crime." But the cop didn't care. He pointed his gun again, voice dripping with arrogance. "You're lucky I only put one in your shoulder." The major lifted his head, eyes burning through the pain. "You just shot a U.S. Army major on active duty, and you have no idea what you've just done." The cop leaned closer. "Oh yeah, what I did was save this neighborhood." But then, 6 black SUVs screeched into the parking lot at once. Doors flew open. Men in dark suits poured out, moving with terrifying precision. Their badges flashed in the sunlight. Department of Defense, Office of the Inspector General, Pentagon Liaison Division. The cop's face went gray. One agent pointed at him. "Officer, drop your weapon. Now." The cop stuttered, Who the hell are you people?" Another agent stepped forward and said, "We're the people who take down anyone who harms a United States military officer." And in that instant, the cop finally realized. He hadn't just shot a black man. He had shot someone the Pentagon protected. The cop's gun slipped in his trembling hand as the agents closed in around him. This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "He attacked me. He reached for something." The lead Pentagon agent cut him off with a cold stare. "We watched the livestream. He never moved toward you. He complied with every order. And you shot him anyway." The cop's knees wobbled. Livestream. He spun toward the bystanders. Half the crowd had their phones raised, still recording. Panic drained the color from his face. "Turn those off. Now. This is a police investigation." The agent's voice went sharper. "No. This is a federal incident." He stepped forward, towering over the cop. "And your badge doesn't outrank the Department of Defense." The major tried to get up but winced, blood dripping down his arm. 2 agents rushed to him, supporting him gently. "Sir, stay seated. Medics are 90 seconds out," one said. But the major shook his head. "No, I need to say something, before he lies again." He looked straight at the cop, his voice steady despite the pain. "You stopped me because I drove a nice car in your neighborhood. You never asked my name. You never checked my plates. You saw my skin before you saw my rank." The cop opened his mouth, shaking his head violently. That's not true. You were acting suspicious." One agent stepped between them. "Suspicious? He was in uniform." He held up the major's ID, clean, official, and glowing with clearance codes. "This man," the agent continued, "is Major Marcus Hale. Combat decorated. Pentagon Intelligence Division. He outranks not just you, but every cop in this county." The crowd murmured, some in shock, some in anger. The major held the cop's terrified gaze. "You didn't see an officer. You didn't see an American. You saw what? You wanted to see, and you pulled the trigger. The agents surrounding the cop pulled out restraints. The cop panicked, stepping back. You can't arrest me. I'm law enforcement. You hear me? Law enforcement. The lead agent leaned in, his voice cold enough to freeze the air. And we're the law you answer to when you cross the line. The cop didn't even get to finish his protest. The agents grabbed his wrists. And for the first time that day, the cop looked like the one who was afraid. The restraints clicked around the cop's wrists, and his entire body jolted like he'd been shocked. You can't do this, he shouted, voice cracking. My chief will back me up. The DA owes me favors. The lead agent didn't even turn around. Your chief is already on the phone with the Pentagon. And the DA. He gave a cold half laugh. She just sent us a message saying she wants nothing to do with you. The cop's mouth fell open. What? No, this isn't happening. But it was. Behind them, the major was breathing heavily, his uniform soaked in blood. The medics arrived, kneeling beside him, but he lifted a hand. Wait. Everyone paused. The major looked straight at the cop, calm, steady, unbroken. Tell me the truth, he said quietly. Why did you stop me? The cop's eyes darted frantically, searching for a lie that might save him. Because you didn't signal when you turned. The crowd murmured, someone even laughed. The agent next to him shook his head. Parking lot has no turns, genius. The cop's face twisted with panic. The major let out a slow breath. You profiled me. You saw a black man in a car that cost more than your annual salary. And you decided I didn't belong. The cop's voice cracked. You looked dangerous, all right. Dangerous. The major repeated softly. Standing still in uniform. Silence fell like a hammer. One of the agents looked at the cop with disgust. You didn't shoot a threat. You shot a target you made up in your head. The medics finally began dressing the major's wound, but he kept his eyes on the cop. You think you're tough because you have a badge. He whispered. I've faced men with real weapons, in real wars, and none of them ever scared me as much as officers who think they're above the law. The cop's chest tightened. I was just doing my job. No, the major said, voice low but razor sharp. Tonight wasn't your job. It was your hatred. The agents pulled the cop toward the SUVs, but the lead agent paused and looked back at the major. Sir, we'll transport him directly to the federal holding station. And we'll be filing a full misconduct report. Then he turned to the cop. And once the Pentagon files its charges, your career won't just end. He leaned in, voice dropping to a chilling whisper. It will disappear. The cop's face collapsed in terror as they dragged him away. And Major Hale, despite the pain, despite the blood, despite the chaos, finally allowed himself one slow breath. Because the man who tried to break him was the one being taken away in chains. The courtroom went completely quiet. Everyone stared at the young man who had just walked in, tall, calm, wearing a sharp suit. Judge Harris looked annoyed. She didn't recognize him yet. But Officer Miller did. His face went pale. The young man walked straight to the bench and spoke firmly. Your Honor, I am Daniel Brooks, federal prosecutor for the Civil Rights Division. And the man you allowed to be slapped and humiliated is my father. Gasps filled the courtroom. Mr. Brooks, the elderly man, lowered his eyes, not because he was ashamed, but because he didn't want his son to see his pain. Daniel continued, his voice sharp. I'm filing charges against Officer Miller for assault, abuse of authority, and targeting a citizen based on race. And I'm filing a complaint against this court for allowing it. Judge Harris froze. Officer Miller swallowed hard. Everyone else stayed still, waiting to see what would happen next. This was no longer a simple courtroom case. It had become a battle for justice.